Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a consultant in life sciences. I focus in on helping companies with people, process, and technology with strategy wrapped around it to focus in on helping companies increase capacity and scale. There's a current workshop that I'm working on running next week, September the 7th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. If you would like to enroll in that workshop, you can go to thescalingmethod.com/strategies. So with that, let me hop into our interview for today. In this episode of Life Science Success, my guest is Hanns-Christian Mahler, and Dr. Mahler is the founder and CEO of 1023 Health. He leads a customer-centric and sustainable pharmaceutical development partner. So with that, welcome.
Hey, Don, thank you for having me, and thanks for the introductions.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And we were chatting a little bit before the show, and I'm really excited to get to dive into your experience and the things that you do inside of our space. So, would you just tell listeners a little bit about yourself and give us a brief overview of your background?
Sure. My name is Hanns-Christian Mahler. I'm originally from the Frankfurt region, was born in Wiesbaden, Germany, relocated to Basel in something like 2005. I'm married, have two wonderful kids. I studied pharmacy in Germany, did my PhD there, and have been working in pharmaceutical companies and CDMO space. And then in 2021, I did start my own journey with 1023 Health. And apart from that, I love playing guitars. I love watching my son playing baseball and playing a band since 1993, but not often enough.
Yeah, and to me, there's a tremendous community there in Basel as well. And I remember being there in like the early summertime as the river starts to warm up and people actually float down the river in Basel as well. I remember experiencing that for the first time and just thinking, what a great activity, for people as well to just spend time, in the water and get to cool off a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun. There's also a Basel Swimming Day in August, and it's been so warm here over the last month or so that there were also plenty of kids just bathing in the many fountains that exist across the city. So it's fun.
Very nice. And then how did you get started in life sciences?
Well, first of all, I was early on attracted to actually get into pharmacy and a pharmaceutical degree because I thought that's close to the patients. It's not as close as a patient as being a medical doctor, but then again, I could not see blood, so that was maybe as good as it gets. And it was I thought the pharmacy degree would be also a flexible one. It would be broader than basically a sole biology or chemistry degree, and that kind of nicely worked out. And after my PhD, it was also clear to me that I wanted to move to industry to basically use my knowledge but also my energy and trying to develop medicines, and that's what I've been trying to do ever since.
Yeah, the sort of focus on blood at the beginning just reminds me of I'm similar. Not a fan of blood, and with my children, whenever we took them to have their ears pierced, my daughters have their ears pierced. I remember getting lightheaded just through that experience, so I could only imagine as well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because being in, especially my specialty is sterile dosage forms and injectables, and I'm usually discussing like needles and the defect of needles that may exist on injectable products. And I remember also for the COVID vaccine injection, I was talking through with a nurse on what would be the brand of the needle they use, and remembering that some of these needles had hooks, so some quality deficiencies. And then she would actually say, yeah, actually I've been having some difficulties in actually pulling out the needles, so that's why it is. And I mean, these are the minutes that I usually start to faint even on injections myself and vaccinations. But anyway, so I can in theory discuss with her a lot about needle quality.
Oh, very good. And then how did you get into this focus on being an entrepreneur as well? What led you to being a consultant and starting your own agency?
Yeah, I mean, I did start my professional career in a pharmaceutical company that was Merck, German Merck at the time. I did move to Roche. That was also what brought me to Basel, and then moved on to the CDMO side with Lonza at the time. And I think consistent of all the jobs that I had in industry in pharma industry and CDMO was that I was supposed to build something and building organizations, building new standards, building new processes, and that was quite something that resonated with me. Even my first job at Merck, like my boss told me, we don't have standards and guidances and processes how to do development for biologics. Go develop it. Go build it. Or we want to build a new sterile production unit. Go build it. And then when I was asking, what's our standard, he said, well, we haven't released a product for a while, so go make that standard. And that was very interesting because it enabled me to think about what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what are the requirements, how to interpret them, and do that from a procedural way, and then basically also build the organization groups around it and hire people who are also eager to standardize processes, etc. So and I think that all these build up activities I've been always very blessed with, having line managers that put that trust in me and actually gave me quite a space to actually develop and do things. And finally, I had a team which was very excited about doing things and quite inherently intrinsically motivated. And so I think in hindsight, it was probably well overdue that I started my own business, and that's what I did then at early in 2021, when I left, and then also fairly quickly was connected to a private equity, which happens to be also now our investors at 1023 Health. Uh, so it was very clear that I have a lot of joy in building things. I think I can also build things together with a team that also take equal joy in actually doing it and building it and making an impact. And I think also from the sense of building 1023, I think my motivation was also that I do think that um, I like to disrupt, and that's where I think I can bring a little bit of disruption and maybe some fresh ideas to the pharmaceutical and CDMO sector, which probably by definition is a little bit more conservative.
Yeah, and what I hear in that, I mean, I said this a few episodes ago as well. Somebody had called me a generalist, right? Somebody that can, sort of bridge across a lot of different areas. And what I hear is one, it sounds to me like you're a generalist in some, aspects. You're an integrator, somebody that can take a lot of different things and sort of, pull those pieces together. And as well, just having that sort of spirit of building something that can help the industry. So yeah, important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a builder's perspective, I also am kind of an activator. Apart from that, I think with the being a generalist, I agree. I can be quite a specialist though at the same time. So it's interesting because I mean, we can have a detailed discussion about an antibody formulation and manufacturing processes around it, and at the same time, I am happy to zoom out and think about I don't know, registration strategy, or we can talk about EBITDA and the relevance of CO2, monitoring and reduction from a company. So that's where I always enjoy not to be put into one drawer as well. So that was interesting in my early career, where I also had line managers who probably were not sure if I would be a scientist or a manager or a project manager, and there were three different ladders, and they had to put people into distinct categories, and that was I was always not very impressed with putting people into categories, and that's why, I mean, maybe also from my side, I can zoom in and zoom out, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, as people are thinking about these sort of career ladders and there being, you know, three distinct silos, there's always an opportunity for somebody to build a ladder that cuts across.
Yeah, and I truly believe that you need to build your own ladder, because I mean, there's no ladder that anyone puts in front of you, and you know, is it a ladder anyway? And I think it probably ties in with learning, development, and growing, and you know, benefiting from feedback and thinking about what's important for you in your life and how you basically can best align that with a, you know, a professional role and a professional ambition as well.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about you know, 1023 Health and what it is that you do? I think it's important as well in the discussion to probably talk about the company here.
Yeah, absolutely. So 1023 Health, we are a contract development and manufacturing organization, or in short, CDMO. So we develop our customers, or we convert our customers' molecules into sterile medicines. Our customers could be large pharmaceutical companies, could be biotech startups, um, who would bring their, you know, API or therapeutic modality to us, like an antibody, bispecific, whatever, and we would develop the formulation. We would think about the primary packaging or whether it needs a device. So we would, for example, then, you know, develop a composition, put it into a syringe, and would manufacture that syringe for clinical studies, but also for commercial use, or it could be in a cartridge or whatever, and then and then test it at the end of the day as well. So in brief, we are basically CDMO with a focus on sterile product development, manufacturing, and testing, and with the expertise of the team, and I think our specialty also being, you know, I would say difficult to develop and difficult to produce products that are mostly going into subcutaneous self-administration, for example, or intravitreal, so intraocular injections are also a specialty of our team when it comes to, you know, highly viscous, high concentrated proteins, where syringes also need to be, you know, there shouldn't be any air in the syringes, because if you want to inject something into the eye, air can be quite a concern. And things, sterile medicines that require specific expertise are hence, I think, also definitely a unique selling proposition of ours.
And how big is your facility? How many liters can you produce at any one time?
So, I mean, in theory, our production facility goes from 1 liter to 200 liters. It depends a little bit on the format and what is then being filled, on how many units would actually end up after the production. We're also building 2 more production lines right now in our at our site in Visp, Switzerland. That's in Valais, so in the more southern region of Switzerland. So currently, probably in the range of 1 to 200 liters, which is I think a reasonable scale, but it's also not super large scale commercial. So I mean, we are not at a point where we will be doing large volume blockbuster injectable products, but products that basically target, you know, a quick entry into market with specialty applications, and need to go into sub-Q self-administration with devices, as an example, and then um, maybe are only required at initial launches in the region of, you know, I don't know, 20, 30, 40,000 units maybe for initial launches, which at some point also would be an interesting scale for things like orphan drugs, etc. So, you know, that kind of scale. And our larger scale facility that we're building right now would be basically a, you know, a scale up version of what we currently have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, what are some of the most pivotal moments in your career?
Huh. I think it's probably about uh, it's about how I've interacted with line managers and teams, I would probably say. And I mean, I think it's been important for me to think about changing gears also early on in my career. I mean, initially when I studied pharmacy and made my PhD, I was always dreaming about an academic career. It was pretty clear to me that I wanted to move to industry to have a little bit more application and to really make a more direct impact, maybe developing medicines and making an impact for patients. My father passed away when I was developing an anti-lung cancer antibody, and he may have benefited from that very antibody. So it made uh, me being very committed for that product, and I was, putting in a lot of work and hours into actually making that accessible for other patients, and so I had that connection to what it means to have uh, a deadly disease basically in your family, and what difference you can make with a product to actually help. It was very important for me to move into Switzerland as well. I think that helped a lot also to move outside of my comfort zone. Was probably initially not very, um, the Rhine-Main area in Germany is also pretty rich in pharmaceutical companies, so it was not an obvious move actually to go into Switzerland. But that actually also helped me a lot to move outside of my comfort zone, and that was one of the best advices my wife, or girlfriend at the time, and now wife actually gave me at the time. And I've been also pretty blessed with a lot of great line managers who gave me great advice, and actually gave me a lot of space, a lot of ability to do things and shape things the way I think it would require, and they basically were working alongside, being mentors and partners in that journey. So that was an amazing experience, and I think it helped me growing over the years as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy to leave your home country for anything as well, right? I mean, that's got to be a an overall, challenge. But I can understand, what you're saying with regards to, how it might, just force you to think outside of your normal comfort zone, and how do you sort of continue to expand and grow, and then having leaders that help. I continue saying that leaders are really good leaders to me are the ones who build the runway for you to go fly the plane, right? So go figure out how to best do that. And I feel like the best leaders, whenever I hear that description, that's what always comes back to mind for me, is just that analogy of, hey, somebody clearing the path for somebody else to just go do the best they can.
No, absolutely. And this is where, I mean, I've been also thinking of leaders in the sense that I think I've seen a lot of coaching, from the sideline, but, not in the way that you would shout at players and saying, go run, and, but more on if you do that, have you thought about that? And, or asking questions actually. And questions are such a powerful tool also, being a leader. And that's where I've been really blessed. And I was also very happy when one of the leaders I was blessed with when I was at working at Roche, and was asking her if she would join our board actually at 1023 Health. So that was it was a great moment, and I didn't need to do any convincing as well. So she was very ready and happy to be asked, and I think it's also great learnings about the leaders as well that I've been working with, is that it's so important to actually think about your values and to act consistently with your values. And that's maybe another thing that was pivotal in my professional, but maybe similarly in my private life as well, is that you got to stick true to your values and beliefs, and don't bend yourself over. And I've been always a person who would not be shy about voicing things. And so if something was happening which would be opposed to my values and beliefs, and also maybe the values of a given company and organization, I would usually voice it. But that's why I really do think that it's so important to make sure that you're grounded in a setting of values and belief, and to be consistent acting towards these. And this is where, even early on for 1023 Health, we had quite some discussion with the team at the time about what our values are, what's our purpose and our mission, and not this being a marketing exercise or internal external communication exercise and you put it on the wall. I mean, it's really seriously our North Star,
Mm.
and make sure that all the decisions would always go back to these values. And if they would be in danger, then you don't take that decision. So don't change your values, but basically, keep consistently acting with your commitments, basically, and your values.
And it's important for the people that are inside of your organization as well. I mean, the minute that organizational leaders start to flex around, the values, then these questions always seem to come up, and you see it in sort of shielded conversations amongst the workers, right? That hey, I don't really understand. This doesn't seem to match our values anymore, and we're still continuing down this path, and so it definitely will confuse your workforce pretty quickly, as well, the minute that you sort of bend or flex around the values that the organization has.
No, no, absolutely. And I truly also believe that I believe in the importance of purpose and motivation when going to work, and the impact you can make, that all the individuals and colleagues can make in a company. But that would really assume that that you first of all thought about your own values and inherent purpose, and to make sure that it aligns with the company's values and purpose. And uh, so the minute you basically also see that this is not consistent from walking the talk really, then I think it's an additional dissonance that you would probably feel as an employee and as a person. And I mean, depending on the organization, you may or may not then verbalize that, and you may speak up and saying, "Yeah, I'm concerned that we operate against our values," which obviously assumes a psychologically safe environment. Um, However, there may also be situations where people then just mentally check out and move into, let's say, internal resignation and things like that.
Yeah, so true. And then, what sort of lessons or experiences have shaped your role as a CEO?
What experiences? Well, first of all, I mean, just maybe coming back a little bit about the relevance of joy, motivation, and purpose. I truly believe that thinking about the rewarding and incentivification system as a whole, and how you interact with people in an organization, I think it's super important to make sure that people have fun, are motivated, and find their purpose at work. If that happens, I think you know wonderful things happen. Um, I also believe that some of the traditional probably incentivization systems only go so far. So, for example, I still think that rewarding on individual goals by monetary compensation and bonuses may be helpful in some cases, but I think they may be totally counterintuitive, and maybe actually even stopping a company from achieving their goals, if these are not very well aligned with the overall goals. And that's where, I mean, one of the clear focus areas of me is to make sure that you don't run in an organization where there's politics or silos, or pieces of the organizations operate against each other, and things like that. I think it's maybe the obvious thing to say, but it's probably also not so easy to actually manage that internally. And especially the larger an organization gets, the more you will probably see of that. But that's to me super important, is to make sure that you remain a focus on purpose and motivation. You take away silos, and that there's no maybe incentivification that can drive wrong behaviors. And as a business, I also truly believe that uh, I mean, for me, it's quite important to make sure that an organization, like we are small, medium-sized enterprise, around about 170 employees, which I think is gigantic for an organization that is just existing for 2 years. But it's very important that obviously all our colleagues, all the 170 colleagues that I'm having, are also equally operating in the company as if this would be just totally theirs. And that's why I also believe in employee equity, and making sure that there's a level of ownership and accountability with each of us working for this company as if it would be our own. And um, that's why I think it's also a question of ownership and accountability. And finally, and sorry for the long line of thoughts, I also believe that there's more to a business nowadays than just a top line or bottom line result, which is like a question of financials. I think there's an importance for making a positive impact for people, for society, for giving back, for making sure that there's never a damage to the planet. And this is why also early on in our DNA we anchored the three commitments: patients, people, and planet. and we've registered for B Corp pending. I've done quite a bit of stuff in the field of sustainability, and far and above monitoring CO2. We've been operating net positive. Now basically putting in even carbon capture into our CO2 portfolio. We've been implementing a compost at our site to handle the organic waste, and to go a little bit above and beyond what probably you would typically see in pharmaceutical companies and CDMOs. But then again, I mean, this is what I also believe is our opportunity as a new company and our mission to actually think and go beyond and maybe help disrupt a little bit what you can do in the field of pharmaceutics and CDMO as a company. So I truly believe in triple bottom line, basically.
Yeah. And I feel like this idea of having a broader vision in terms of one, people that are involved in your company, but also kind of the way that your company impacts the world is so critical now. And oftentimes, anymore we talk about things like quiet quitting and people wanting to essentially expand what it is that they want to do, as human beings as well. And I just think overall about the advantages of having a workforce like that, not necessarily the risks or the disadvantages, but whenever you think about the companies that do it right and essentially are thinking beyond monetary advancements, beyond sort of the normal things that I think most companies have done. How do you keep your employees even more engaged and more involved in kind of the broader world and the broader aspects as well is important.
Yeah, cannot agree more. I mean, absolutely done.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are quite a few CDMOs in our space, and I just wanted to touch on, how is 1023 different than other CDMOs, and how do you stand apart?
Well, I mean, firstly, I do believe that our expertise and services is quite unique, and I was touching on sterile dosage forms. If you zoom out, actually, there's not an awful lot of CDMOs who have a good combination of development expertise and manufacturing expertise, especially when it comes to specifically challenging highly viscous formulation for subQ delivery, prefilled syringes, and things like that. So I would probably say it's what we do, and that we basically have quite a uniqueness and USP around. At the same time, I also think we currently probably stick out. I think we're probably the only CDMO who is B Corp, and about our purpose driven and sustainability really driven agenda, which is, again, it's not a marketing activity, it's not an external communication roadmap, it's genuine, and I'm very passionate about these topics, and I also believe that such efforts anyway only work out if you have very strong alignment on board management team across the whole the whole organization. Everyone in the organization needs to be really having that on the focus, and that's where I truly believe we are kind of different on the what we do, but also on the how we do it, and maybe even the why.
Very important. What's some of the best leadership advice that you've ever received, and then how has it impacted you? Did you hear me? Oh, I may have lost you.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay.
I think I'm having a little bit of a, I don't know. I'm also having a little bit of connection trouble. I think it goes back to I think it goes back to your prior question and my prior comment on what you said before. I think it's about mentors and leaders like Ursula Redeker, who actually gave best advice when it comes to asking questions, to be really trying to prepare the runway. I think that's a great analogy that you used, Dawn. It's about being the coach, asking questions, inspire and be driven, and be authentic, and being, trust in others, because if you trust in others, you'll be trusted back. And it's really about collaboration and communication. I think these are probably some essential elements. And it sounds a little bit like standard responses, but it really truly resonated with me over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is very important as well. I mean, and this idea kind of resonates with a couple episodes ago. I interviewed as well David Burkus. David Burkus is uh, an organizational psychologist, and one of the things that he highlighted was during the pandemic. One of the first questions that he was asked was, "Can I track and monitor my employees?" And to me, that's a question about, did you make the right hires or not? I mean, to me, it's less about, sort of tracking the time, but did you, yeah, I mean, if you really trust your people, you wouldn't be asking that question. But now all of a sudden these people are at home and you're afraid that they're all not working. So you want to track them.
Absolutely.
It just seems silly to me.
Yeah, exactly. And even with these two specific examples at 1023, we have a work from anywhere policy and a trusted work time policy. And if you have a concern here, I mean, why put up a company and why hire these people, right? I mean, as you say.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. There are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Huh. I I would probably say the first thing that comes to my mind is my wife inspires me. I think she's always asking the right questions and she has great advice. She's understanding things different quickly and actually can be a good sounding board. Um, I have inspiration from a lot of colleagues and people I met in my life and the leaders I've been working with, other people in their stories, people who are dedicated and believe in things. I'm inspired by Greta Thunberg. I think she's doing a terrific job and really trying to save the planet by going on school strikes and look what can happen if you're passionate and believe. And social entrepreneurs. I'm also driven and inspired by social entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so those are all also important and inspiring things as well. So, what concerns you?
Uh, Believe it or not, I'm hugely concerned with climate change. We saw a lot of changes with the weather. My kids are 10 and 12, so I'm a little bit scared of the planet that they would actually experience, even when I'll not be around anymore. And I think I'm concerned in it also in the way that I'm not sure about the ability of humankind to actually change course in order to minimize the impact of climate change. And I think it's totally doable, but I think it requires collective it requires collaboration globally, and it requires collective thinking, and that's where I think people need to step out of their individual fears and maybe desires and think about a little bit about what the planet will be for us holistically.
Yeah, I mean, even in the United States, I mean, they currently, we had a hurricane in Florida, and then, in Maui recently with the wildfires expanding because of the air
Yeah,
from a hurricane.
exactly.
It's just, I mean, it only stands to get worse, and so it's time to wake up. And
Yeah,
yeah, I agree.
totally.
And last question, what excites you?
Well, I'm excited because I mean I was using the inspiration also with Greta Thunberg, but I think that's sounds maybe a little strange, but I'm very excited about seeing young people who are very committed and willing to change. They want to drive impact. They want to change the world, and it actually puts a lot of hope with me because I also think that it's great to see the next generation. The next generation is actually coming forward and taking action. To make a change, and I'm quite excited about it.
Yeah, and it's I mean her approach seems to be one that, is I think waking a lot of people up as well in terms of, how seriously should we take this going forward? And you kind of look at the next generation and the impact that they could have. And it's tremendous. So I definitely am looking forward to to continuing to participate as well as help as much as possible as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Hans, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciated you being here and for telling us about 1023 Health and all the things that you're currently working on. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you so much, Don, for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and keep well.
Thanks so much.